then to receive pleasure from that, to have orgasms for the man who's present inside of his cock and his heart, and he like knows his sexual power, he knows his worth, and he's present. It's literally like, wow, like truly it's like the best drug I've ever taken.
Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Layla Martin on the Sex Upgraded podcast. Thank you for being here. My name is Taylor. I'll be your host for this episode, and today I'm joined by Layla Martin, who in my opinion is one of the best teachers in the realms of sacred sexuality, tantric sexuality, and overall just sexual health and vibrance and wellness in general. It's a treat, today's episode, and I'm so glad you're here. This is part 2. So if you want an introduction to Layla, that's in part 1. And in part 1, we also did a look at one of the main areas men get stuck when they're trying to improve their sex lives. In this part 2, we're going to explore some taboo and edgy stuff around male sexuality and why the world and relationships actually need this and want this, and why it's so hard for men to feel like we can actually do it, myself included. Like, I'm still working on the things that we're talking about today as well. So we're in this together. And there are some really beautiful words that Layla says to men in general that if you're a man listening could feel so just, at least I'll speak for myself, felt so nourishing to hear from a woman who's done a lot of work in this realm. So I'm so excited to get into it today. Thank you for being here. And without further ado, let's get into part 2. I'm curious to talk about the state of men, which people hear that sentence and they're like, oh shit. Like, what do you mean?
I'm a wild feminist and I'm angry and I'm coming for you.
Yeah, but you, at the Eris retreat, like you started with this really beautiful kind of reverent welcome to men that I was just like, wow, that's fucking awesome. And I'm wondering, like, what do you appreciate about men? How do you feel about men in general? Is that, yeah. Curious.
Thank you. No, I would love to share about that. So first of all, let me qualify the joke I just made, which is like originally when I started doing this work and everyone was like, those angry feminists, they're so angry. And then I was like, okay, like let's take a step back here. Cause like, let's just say theoretically that you like took all the economic, social, and political power from a class of people for like, let's say like a few thousand years and then taught them to hate and shame themselves and sexually repress themselves and made their normal functioning, like having a menstrual cycle, something that everyone should be like really scared of and ashamed of, and medicalized their body and all of that, and didn't even let them have a checking account and like allowed rape culture to perpetuate. Like, and like when you had a moment of like looking around and being like, oh shit, would you not be angry for there's like a moment for some rage? And to me, this is what's happening in culture in these little moments is people are really waking up to the toxicity and like the fucked upness of what happened and being like, holy shit, like that was horrible. Like I'm pissed off. Like that wasn't cool, right? Like I still, when I tap into it, and I'm like, I grew up watching Clueless of like, you have to be that skinny and that dumb and that vapid for any man to like you. Like if that doesn't fill me with a little rage sometimes, then like I'm not paying attention.
Totally.
And I give women a ton of credit that like most women that I know, and especially women doing the work, are like, well, that sucked. Water under the bridge. Like, how do we make it better? Right? Like how do we actually build a better world, a better society, a more beautiful world? And so when I look out at that, that's what I see is the number of people who are like, holy shit, that sucked. Okay, what's next? Like, how do we do this? And so I can't judge anyone for having their moment of anger. I think that's so essential for reestablishing power and boundaries. And beyond that, it's like anyone who's really doing the work, the anger's a phase. And then, right, your heart opens and unlocks. And when my heart opened all the way and I really started listening to men, I just realized how much they've been through. And a really big moment for me with men was I uncoupled from an 8.5-year partnership and I started dating again. And like, just a little ego chip on my shoulder, like I was like dating like NBA players and Grammy Award winning musicians and like whatever. Like the reason I say this is, and like titans of business. And the reason I say this is because I would have expected in our culture that those men would feel worthy, right? Like handsome, capable, accomplished. And what I was seeing because I had done enough healing work on myself that I wasn't just using them as a token to prove something about myself. There was still some layers there, but I actually wanted to know them. And universally, during that year of dating, it struck me how even the most privileged men among us were struggling so hard with worthiness. They were doubting themselves. They were hating themselves. They were having such a hard time with the feminine, with women. They were questioning their path. They were confused in their spirituality. They were lost in their bodies. And I was like, oh shit. I just spent 15 years working with women. I worked with men before that, but I really focused on women for a long time. And I really got into this world of seeing women's pain on this planet. And when I really opened my eyes, I was like, oh shit, the men are in so much pain. And I think what's harder for men is that, at least as women, we're like, well, that was a shitty bargain. I was in that much pain, and I couldn't fucking have any money or get divorced or whatever, and report her sexual harassment. So fuck this, right? We're that didn't work for me. I'm out of here. But a lot of men still subtly believe that the system is working for them. And so they're actually still fighting for a system that's been just as toxic for them as it is for women. And so the way that I see men is divine fucking warriors. And I don't mean a divine warrior like a perfect man. I mean a divine warrior with all your sensitivity, with the times that you've cried and failed and not been able to get off the floor, the moments that you failed yourself in your relationship, with all of your addictions and lazy behaviors. I mean, including that. Men are warriors and kings and gods. And when I have seen men embody that through breath work, through sacred sexuality practices, touch that inside of themselves, the whole room goes electric. So there's a specific vibration that happens when the women get lit. And there's a frequency when the men return to their true God-given, universe-given, biology-given power, however you want to think of it. Makes my hair stand on end. And one of the things that it made me see was that men have actually lost their true power even more than women, but we don't see it because they have the appearance of power and culture, but they don't have that true power, the spiritual power, the spine of power, the values that give you power, your open heart, your cock and your testicles and your mystical center, all aligned kind of power. And it's just getting worse. And so when I first welcomed men into the retreat, I do it from an acknowledgement that men feel really unseen right now in society and really judged and really criticized. And B, it's kind of scary when you've had a certain kind of power and it feels like even that's getting taken away. And C, a distrust of women, that they're against them, or they don't see them, or they judge them. And so for me, it's really important to acknowledge them, but also let them know, I'm as devoted to you as I am to the feminine. And in fact, right now, I think on this planet, the true masculine is even more rare. If I was going to be in deepest service to this planet right now, I would serve men, because I feel like they are hurting more, and not in oh, poor victims, I need to save them, in a kind of I see what the fuck you are, and I want you to live this life in your full power, in any way that I can be a guardian and a support on your journey in that. I'm here for that. And I love that there's more and more leaders of men like you, Taylor, who really hold this mantle of one of the things I was so touched by in the retreat is how authentically you lead and how vulnerably you share from, because it's this exquisite portrait of what a man can be, but without any of the bullshit of oh, it's got to be this and this fronting and this pretending. It's it's so real. It includes your teenage awkwardness. It includes the doubts that you still have. And it also includes building a really successful business and having the dopest partner and all of that, it's all of it. So that's how I feel about men.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for that reflection. And as somebody who leads people, Well, first, as a student of different people throughout time, I've really appreciated when people who are leading me through things are transparent and authentic and vulnerable about what's going on for them. Because I'm like, oh, you're human. Great. Now I can learn from you. You're not up here on this pedestal. Like, your shit stinks too, you know?
Totally.
So yeah, I try to do that. It's important to me and it feels good.
Yeah.
And you said a piece around there's this like really powerful kind of primal energy that can happen for men when they stand in their true power. And you mentioned heart and cock and balls and spiritual openness all connected at the same time. And that kind of dovetails with the question, like, what have you seen lacking, you know? And it sounds kind of like that. And what have women said that they've been lacking from men? And also, when I've looked at your course for men, like one of the pieces you have in there in the beginning is this exercise called the fuck kill, you know? And I'm like, all right, let's talk about that. Because I also heard you speak to it in a podcast recently with Om Rupani. There's this sort of like edge, right? There's we'll call it a masculine edge of that's like this really kind of fierce yet attuned state of consciousness that can feel really enlivening for women, you know, and for the world ultimately. But I'd love for you to just speak a little bit about that. What is this fuck kill thing and why?
Well, it's fuck kill to consciousness, and it's a really cool practice, and it encapsulates this teaching. Hold on, I'm really craving sitting with my legs crossed and not knocking a vase of flowers over. So those of you who are not watching visually, I'm just rearranging my body right now. Okay, so in fuck kill to consciousness, this is a practice that I innovated for men because I was like, wait, what is this core thing that men are repressing, that their female partners are hungering for, and that they're even hungering for in themselves? And what I thought about was these two forces of masculine impulse, right? One is to kill. Every man has the capacity to kill. Every human does. But in men, that capacity to kill, it can be the shadowiest of shadow, right? It can be like the darkest of dark, but it can also be the highest service. Like if you're defending your child, you're defending your wife, you're defending your family, right? Then it is the highest honor, that capacity to kill. And that capacity to kill creates a deep sense of safety in the feminine. Like we are designed biologically to be protected. Like we're also badasses and we can also go out there and like do our own thing. And when I'm 8 months pregnant, I need warriors to protect me. And so in that feeling, this essence of kill in a man is so erotic. It's so important. And for a man to feel that in himself. But what's happened is that it's become divorced and there's all this shame on it and all this self-judgment and all this fear of that primal impulse. So in fact, kill to consciousness, you have a pillow that you're sitting on and you turn to your left and you like kill the pillow. Like you give it your kill instinct. Like you're punching it, you're screaming, you're stabbing it, you're stomping on it, like whatever that instinct to kill is. And you do that just full out, or like no control. Then you go back to the pillow and you meditate and you use this kill instinct, but you're meditating. You're like fully present. And then you do another round where you open your heart and your kill instinct comes from your heart. And while that sounds so strange to us, I got really into these like old warrior epics. I talk about the scenarios too. Like I'm like a mega nerd if you haven't picked up on it yet. So I read the Iliad and then I read Gilgamesh. And these are like these ancient heroic epics of male warriors. And in this, men are like chiseled and they're warriors and they're killing and they're poets. And they are filled with love for their cultures and their gods and their families. And they're also human, but there's like this warrior spirit that has love in it. And to me, that's what every man wants to know in himself is I will never misuse my instinct to kill. I will not take out my rage on people that I love, but I would absolutely kill to defend my family. And I would do that from my presence, right? And that instinct as well, like women feeling that in you is so hot. Like a man who's like unstable in his kill instinct is terrifying. And we're like, whoa, stay away from there. But a man who's got his kill instinct as he walks down the street, when he's present with it, it's like so sexy. So it's like take these power instincts, but merge them with meditation and merge them with love. It's the same thing with fuck, right? fuck also has one of the deepest shadows. And any woman who's ever been fucked by a man who doesn't have his consciousness and his heart in it is like, that's horrifying. Like, it's literally horrifying. You feel like you're being masturbated into. You feel like this object, right? And so a lot of men have been like, okay, well, no one wants my fuck, or my fuck is bad, or my fuck could be a rapist, or it could hurt someone, right? And so men are walking around right now disconnected from kill, but they're also disconnecting from fuck. And so in that same meditation, in that same process, it's like meditate and then give your fuck, and then open your heart and then give your fuck. And so this disconnection, if I'm not present and my heart's not in it, these impulses in men give us some of the greatest shadows on the planet. But as soon as a man is present and opens his heart, then your fuck is the greatest gift. Because I know women, I know myself, and we all want to be consensually fucked by a man who knows his killer instinct and is in touch with his primal sexual power and has his heart open and knows how to be present with all of it. Whoo! And that's, to me, where men restore their power, because I feel like they've started to feel okay in society by disconnecting themselves from these primal forces rather than truly re-empowering by using meditation in their heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is one of the biggest things in the realm of sex and intimacy between men and women right now, because I hear all these women who are saying, like, I just want to be ravished, I want to be taken, I want to be held and like done all these things too. And then at the same time, I hear all these men saying, like, I don't want to be the man who's hurting the woman with my sexual desires. Like, I don't want to be too overbearing. I don't want to, like, I have fear around being too much, my desire being too much, or being like the bad man or something. Like, that is pervasive. It's pervasive right now.
Yes.
It's wild. So,
well, I understand why that would be confusing, because pretty much every woman without exception, right? Like, I had horrific experiences, but even beyond that, like, we have all met a man who has used his sexuality in a negative or abusive or just harmful way. Like, as a young spiritual practitioner, I didn't have a single male teacher for 15 years who didn't try to fuck me. And like, not in like a cool, like, this is special or in love kind of way, like this is like my right to do kind of way. And so there is this like feminine contraction around the male expression of rage, or around the male expression of fuck, because we've experienced it so much disconnected. And I think one of the great mysteries of life is that we crave it when it is connected. I think for men to really understand that is really important. And also that women have to do our healing. I had to let go of my pain around the masculine. I had to do rituals around all my daddy issues. I had to let go of all of my disappointments from the past. I had to let my pain body go so that I could let a man be a man. Because as long as I was in so much pain from my father, from my upbringing, from early bad experiences with boys or men, because I was hurting so much, I couldn't see the man in front of me. And I just did a podcast with my beloved Babak, and he said, like, thank you, Layla, for all of the work you did before you met me. Like, I went into a darkness retreat and I worked out my pain with every man in my life, starting with my father up into the most recent man I dated. And I went through it ceremonially until I got to forgiveness, and then until I got to gratitude, because I was like, the next man I meet, I want to be able to see him, and I want to be able to honor him. And I don't want to do to him what I did to previous partners, which is I saw them through the lens of my own pain. And I still see my beloved through the lens of my own pain, but far, far less than I ever did before. And I think as women, if you say you want a warrior and a man in his power, you'll still have to deal with the fact that, like, you can't fucking push him around. And like, it's the same with me. Like, I'm a queen goddess, and like, my beloved is always like, cannot push you around. Not the way I used to. Cannot outrun you, cannot outsmart you, cannot tell you what to do, because I stand in my fierce power. But the thing is now, so does he. right? Like I have to want to be with someone inhabiting his warrior king, and he still deals with his own stuff and is in his own process. Like it's not like he's perfect, but in his power, right? It's a different calculus. I can't emasculate him. I don't even want to. I can't tell him what to do, nor would I want to. I can give him my truth and my discernment, but I let him be free. And I don't mean like sexually free, like we have a strong container and strong agreements, but I let him be free to be himself. And I was not raised in the art of letting a man to be himself. I was raised in the art of telling a man what to do, and especially tell a man what to do if you feel in any way like upset, make him change his behavior. And I really had to learn the art of let a man be, so that you can have great polarity and both be in your power.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a piece around what I've seen and what I've experienced too is that men and women, I'll speak for men for a second, like we can become very siloed in our own worlds, and have this like othering or like against women, or like, oh, women don't understand this, they don't know what the pain is. And then I see on the other side there's like, oh, well, men don't understand us, we don't know what the pain is. And I want to be like, hey, we're all actually experiencing problems. We're all actually experiencing pain, and there's like, it's a useful empathy to be able to understand that. And like a piece you said, no, you didn't have a male teacher for 15 years that didn't try to fuck you. Like, damn, like, I'm sorry. And that's a big deal, and of course that would leave an imprint, and of course that would impact all the interactions you have with men up until you do, work around that to shift some things. And so I think a little bit of empathy going across the aisle both ways is like a really beautiful and necessary part of the growthful experience, and understanding that we all have work to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I got to put myself, I think putting yourself in someone else's shoes, it sounds so simple, and I think I was in my late 30s before I learned how to do it. And like, I put myself in men's shoes, and I was like, oh, to be a part of the patriarchal system, you had to dehumanize a lot of people, like to participate in dehumanizing capitalism or the economic, political, and social disempowerment of people based on like their race or their gender or their sexual orientation. Like, to dehumanize anyone else and justify taking away their resources, you have to dehumanize yourself first. And what I saw was this mass dehumanization of men, like almost a brainwashing that left them so disconnected, when the vast majority of men are good humans who are actually like beautiful and magical and spiritual beyond belief. And to have to be in such a toxic system was so deeply toxic. And so when I say patriarchy, I say it with just a tremendous compassion for what that did to everyone. And that makes me understand that like the future that I see is just everyone being in their power and their connection and their leadership. And that shouldn't be too much to ask, because I do think that is the way that we're made. And I don't think men sometimes put themselves in the shoes of women enough to be like, what would it feel like to walk around the world feeling physically unsafe as much as you do? What would it have felt like that like my own mother couldn't get a checking account? My mom was like one of the first to go to college, right? Like to grow up, and like there's no men who can be CEOs or presidents or leaders. Like, if anyone, it's still to this day, like I don't think most men even understand what it's like if you experience sexual assault, how horrific the courts are, the way that the police still treat women. It's abhorrent, it's disgusting, and it's news to most men. Like, I feel like most of us walk around disconnected from what it's like to be in the other person's shoes. And that to me is what creates this deep, deep, deep separation.
Yeah. Well said. And so circling back around to the joining in connection piece, like we talked about this fuck kill consciousness and how enjoyable it is for you and for women to experience. I'm wondering, from the perspective of somebody who receives that from men, who has received, the full spectrum heart version of that. Can you just like describe that a little bit more? Like, what's it like to receive that from a man? How can you tell that that's happening in a moment? Like what happens for you?
Like the same way that you can feel when someone's really listening to you. It's like they're there with you versus when someone's like checked out or paying attention to their phone. And when someone's really listening to you, it makes you want to tell your whole story. It makes you want to like share yourself. To me, it's the same thing sexually. Like when someone's in their head or they're checked out or they're fantasizing, it's like, I don't want to share myself. Like, I don't even really want to be here because you don't really want to be here. Yeah. And that same way that you can feel that in a conversation, you can feel that during sex. When a man shows up, that power of your presence is like, holy shit. It's like that feeling of it being like Christmas and New Year's all at the same time. And you're going to get like all of the best gifts. It literally feels like a gift. To open your heart into that, to be celebrated and adored from that place. Again, it's like, wow. Like, men, I want you to know what a gift you are and like what that feels like. Then to receive pleasure from that, to have orgasms for the man who's present inside of his cock and his heart, and he like knows his sexual power, he knows his worth, and he's present. It's literally like, wow. Like truly, it's like the best drug I've ever taken. Doesn't compare to being on the ride of a present man that I love, in his heart and in his fuck and in his power. It's better than any drug. That's literally what it feels like. That level of ecstasy, that level of gratitude, that level of magic. To be able to share that with someone else, even just once, I feel like, makes it all worth it. Makes this whole life worth it. So men, like when you're doing these practices, when you're coming home to yourself, when you're finding your power, just know what a gift you become to everyone in your life, but especially your beloved.
Yeah, let's take another breath to that. Yeah, and not a gift from this ego place of like, oh, I'm a gift to you, but like truly being this. Yeah, I don't even know if I need to put words to it. Like you just said it so beautifully. Like you just existing in that space as a man is a gift,
Yeah. It's like the sunshine.
Yeah. And it sounds like you didn't say these words, but it sounds like you might say it's something you could relax into or feel held by. Would you say so?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's some of my greatest work. My nervous system is the like, nope. Yeah. But yes, to be when in those moments where my nervous system feels safe and I feel held in that way by my beloved, it feels so incredibly good. And good the way that like human life is meant to feel good.
Yeah. There's this word that I've been hearing a lot of this year and a half or so. And you talked about it in your podcast with Ohm as well, but containment. Yeah. And that word seems really appropriate here, and I'm wondering if you could just in your words speak to what that is.
Containment is it's an energetic holding. And the way that Om Rapani talks about it that I think is very helpful is to feel it like being a mountain, right? Like you're not gonna fuck with a mountain's peace or presence, and you can feel that in someone. And when a woman feels that in a man, like I'm here and I'm spacious. And I think the biggest piece of containment that we don't often get is that containment has a coolness to it. So like my beloved was trained as a surgeon and an anesthesiologist. So when you're treating a child medically, right, you're not like, oh my God, the child's not okay. And like, should we do something? Should we move them here or anything, right? It's like, I fucking got this, right? And you are present and you are calm and collected and slow. So the biggest mistake, if you want to call it that, or maybe misunderstanding is a better word, that men have around pleasing the feminine energetically or sexually is like, I gotta do this, or no, maybe I should do that, or I should try this thing, or ooh, I think she likes this. Let me try something else that's gonna feel better, or like speed up or whatever. Whereas actually, like one of the great secrets of the clitoris, right, is like when a woman starts feeling an increase in pleasure, usually don't change your pressure or speed. You just keep going, right? That's a kind of containment in terms of I'm attuned to you and I'm bigger. My field is bigger than whatever you could bring to me energetically, sexually, emotionally. What that does is it allows you to feel like you can relax into this space. Like, I've got you. And I don't have you like, oh my God, is everything okay? Have I solved every problem? Have I crossed every T? Have I dotted every I? It's like a spaciousness that's so big. And the two biggest ways that men can cultivate that, number one is meditation. And number two, do hard things every day, whether it's lifting weights, whether it's surfing, whether it's hiking out in the mountains, whether it's doing an ice bath. When you do hard things, you have to contain your own fear, right? Like when you do hard things, it's not that you never feel fear, it's that you're bigger than your fear. And that's what containment feels like to a woman. It's like, oh, he's bigger than my petty gripe right now, or he's bigger than my current closure, or he's bigger than my tears. And when you have that feeling, it's like, oh, that's how you can rest inside of it. And that's far sexier. Om Rupani really taught me this, and I find it to be extremely true. That feeling is far sexier to the feminine than like a mothering feeling of like, oh, are you okay? And like, let me make you tea. And like, all of that's beautiful sometimes because like everybody feels loved by that. But like, my partner making me tea doesn't make me want to have an orgasm, but him like standing in his warrior power with this kind of coolness of like, you could bring me absolutely everything and I would just stay here with it. Like, that's hot.
I bet you there's a way he could make you tea that would make you want to orgasm. You could practice the combining of those things. Yeah, so for the sake of nerding out on this, it's like there's the fuck kill consciousness that you could then bring to your partner in sex, and then the act and the choice of placing your awareness on your partner while embodying that level of consciousness and feeling, like that is the piece around containment. There's like a care, but there's also an equanimity with that.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. When I'm inhabiting containment with people that I'm working with, it's literally like nothing you could do could disrupt my nervous system. Yeah. And this is the thing, I've had to train that, right? So people can literally scream at me now, and not from a place of dissociation. It's just my sense of safety and the bigness of the moment and the trust of the moment is so much bigger than whatever they're experiencing that it's like, it doesn't disrupt me. And I'm not saying it's like 100%, but I'm pretty unshakable. And that is this feeling of like, whatever you bring to me, it's okay, right? And there's a spiritual level of trust there. There's a training that's in there. There's almost like a compassion in there too that's like built in, which is like, if you start screaming at me as a teacher now, like you're in pain. Like you're in pain, right? And so like it keeps me out of any story about any one person. And like as quickly as possible, I get to understanding. And so that's why containment, even though it's like this simple sounding word, it's a whole bunch of interlocking skills that actually include the ability to feel someone and to almost feel them deeper than they're currently feeling themselves, which is something that you train. And I think that's actually something that a lot of men are missing because they got conditioned to dissociate from themselves. So there's a certain level of dissociation. Yeah, totally. Yeah. As opposed to like, I'm feeling you deeper than you're feeling yourself right now. That's how you offer someone the gift of giving them the desire that they don't even yet know they have.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to say the piece around like there are other ways of having sex too. Like it's not like you always have to be in that space holder role. Like for me, it's nice to lay back and receive a blowjob sometimes, you know, like that's a beautiful part of the experience too. And I might not have to hold that same level of acute awareness. And I just know there might be some people listening who are thinking like, oh, I've got to do that all the time constantly in sex for it to be good from now on. I'm like, no, but it's a flavor of the experience that you could choose to step into sometimes.
Totally. And it's so important for, I know you're a big proponent of this as a man, to like lay back and receive sometimes.
Yeah. I like that. I recognize there are people out there who might not like that as much, but I think it's a beautiful gift. And honestly, like actually for me, when I think about some of the things that have been most helpful in my own journey with sex, like learning to receive energetically, physically, though, like that actually opened me up to the realm of non-ejaculatory orgasms and like longer lasting sex. And so there's like this circuit that can happen, right? And I'm like, oh wow, I can actually intake more, I can breathe more, and more energy can enter me, more pleasure can enter me because I'm open to receiving. And through that act, I'm able to give more and experience more. And that was a huge light bulb experience for me, you know, not just trying to do, train, but like there was another switch to flip. Totally. The receiving switch.
Totally. And I think that can be the danger of too much polarity teachings or too much gendered stuff. You know, some of my greatest sexual gifts and magnetism as a woman is from the power of my meditation. From like, I had this like crazy tantric guru in the jungle who used to make us do poses, like basically until we would fall over so that you would, you know, make peace with your pain. And I did the longest out of any man, any woman. I was like, I will fucking, like, like, I will meet the center of my pain, right? Which was a tantric meditation. Go to Vignan Bhairav Tantra. Go to the center of your pain and be still, right? And so sometimes I think women underestimate the power of these kinds of trainings because to surrender, you have to feel so safe with yourself. You have to know what you're capable of, right? Mm-hmm. And so training yourself into power is so huge. And for so many men to know like the bliss of Kundalini Ma, the goddess herself, like riding through your body, right? Mm-hmm. Or what it feels like to receive the depth of love and beauty in your heart, right? This allows you to have these other qualities that I've been talking about of empathy or feeling someone super deeply or putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So it's like, I think we've also gendered these like practices sometimes, but honestly, fucking part of being a great human, a sexy human, a powerful human is doing all of it.
For sure. Yeah, you could show up with containment and fuck kill consciousness too in the sexual experience. You know, like with the right person in the right context, like we could all hold those different energies. You know?
Look, I love being a woman so much. It's like such a cosmic gift, and I would be a great man.
Nice. So yeah, we're coming to the closing part of the conversation. I just want to ask we did talk about the fuck kill to consciousness exercise, but if there are men listening right now who are thinking, oh, I really want to like dip my toes into this or step into these energies a little bit more, are there other practices or things that you would recommend for them to do or to listen to or to study? Like, what would you say to those men?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have lots of free resources, some really great YouTube videos of like men in giant furry penis costumes. My friend Parker, who's a musician who fully consensually agreed to do it with me, teaching about multi-orgasmic practices, things like that. But I think cultivating, as you teach as well, any kind of pleasure practice, any 10 to 15 minutes once a week or several times a week, where you practice your breath work, you practice your energy circuits, you practice the movement of energy through your body. If you want to do some of those deeper psychological practices, like Fuck Kill to Consciousness comes from my men's sexual mastery training, which is a 7-module training where it's like, yeah, when men do that program, sometimes they're like, wait, like I'm getting you to have like conversations like that, work out your shit with your dad. Cause I'm like, you like truly, that is the key to your multi-orgasmic power, is releasing some of this pain some of this trapped energy. And then if you want to work really deeply with me and my partner, we have a really cool program called the Tantric Mastermind, which is a 4-month container for couples to experience all of this. And we do live retreats in a castle in England, also in Sedona in the really magical desert. And yeah, so you can check any of those pieces out on my website, which is laylamartin.com.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. And sounds like also, we didn't explicitly say this, but perhaps if a man's wanting to do some of those self-pleasure sessions, he could practice bringing in the consciousness of fuck kill to the pleasure session, right? Like try to embody that while doing the pleasure. Yeah,
totally. I mean, if you want to bust out a little fuck kill to consciousness for real, you would literally set up a pillow that you can sit on, a pillow to your left and a pillow to your right. And you set a timer. So you can use Insight Timer. So it's 90 seconds each phase. And the first 90 seconds, you're just going to fuck the pillow to your left, right? At the end of that 90 seconds, you're going to come back and meditate. Then the other 90 seconds, so the bell is going off for each one, you're going to now you're going to kill the pillow. So first phase is kill. So you kill completely, then you meditate on whatever's coming up inside of you. Then you take the consciousness of meditation to kill the pillow. Then you sit back on the pillow and you meditate with an open heart, and then you kill the pillow with an open heart. So killing is like you're hitting the pillow, you're stomping on it, you're letting out that like rageful impulse. And then you come back and you meditate. And then next bell, you're going to turn to your right and you're going to fuck that pillow. So that's literally like give it to the fucking pillow with your pelvis, like super hard. Bell goes off. You're going to come back, sit and meditate. Bell goes. Now you're going to fuck with presence and consciousness. Bell goes. You're going to sit back onto the pillow. You're going to open your heart in meditation. Bell goes, and now you're going to fuck with your open-hearted presence. And then you're going to sit on the pillow one final time and you're going to meditate with your sexual primal fuck energy activated, your heart open, and your full presence. You could do that, and then like any of the practices they've learned from you into self-pleasure, and that will surely unlock a portal to your power.
Yeah. And that seems like one of the most important parts is actually internally feeling the difference of doing those things with presence and with heart compared to without.
Yes.
And what that does to the whole consciousness and embodiment and everything.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it works for everybody, but for men especially, like rather than telling you, once you feel it, you're like, oh, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And so you mentioned the Tantric Mastermind. Are you going to do another Eros retreat? Is that on the horizon? Are you not sure? Like, I'm curious because this was the first one you ever did a month ago.
Totally. Yes. I definitely want to do an Eros retreat in the future. It was so powerful and so wonderful. I would love if you'll come back for you and Naomi to be a part of that. It was so beautiful co-creating with you. So wonderful. And probably, in a year and a half, it's a lot of work and I absolutely want to do it again.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I had a great time at the retreat and I had a great time in this conversation. Thank you, Layla, so much for being here and sharing all the things you share with us. And thank you for listening. If you're listening, please take this into action in your lives and your partnerships. And if you want to know more about Layla, I'll put a bunch of her links in the notes section, some of my links as well. And yeah, what a gift. Thanks so much. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. See you next time. Taylor.